Washington, D.C.
You have a call going to Washington?
Yeah, we're going for
After this interview?
yeah. Like I need one lecturer at the University of the District of Columbia. He's a Venezuelan.
Speaking on this issue,
Yeah.
we are at a critical place here. I don't think a lot of people understand the fallout, the potential fallout. Sanctions from the United States will destroy this country. Our economy cannot withstand. Our economy cannot withstand sanctions.
Really? What? Yeah. 384. It's amazing.
I'm using the bottles of water to hold up my camera. So I need water. I wonder if we get more. I know, but you will want one too.
No, I'm fine.
You sure?
Yeah. I'm
But
good.
Steve might want one. My God. They have one on that table there.
Same like 680.
I want to Mark Bedo says he wants to ask a question like, will we be taking calls?
Yes.
What is the phone number?
Yeah, we give it a 222-8255 or
222-8255. Those of you who are following. So those who want to ask a question live, 222-8255. Write it down and be ready to call. Yeah. Two two five. What have we written on our wall somewhere?
Doesn't look so good. 22282
55.
6128255.
I see Ralph Mirage and Fitzgerald Hines fall out in this studio.
Yes.
Ralph telling that is unethical.
It was I-95.5.
Oh, that was I-95, it's not here.
Not it? Oh, okay.
The setup looked the same.
Huh? Yeah. And if you get in trouble, call Steve and tell him you're trying to make that call. You know his number?
Yeah. But you want to start?
Yeah. Or then you could call Rodney Charles. Right? So that or Stephen right? Call Rodney Charles. Call Rodney Charles. 653 number.
US has announced economic sanctions and is contemplating other possible action against Venezuela. Countries in the EU and other countries
It's 102 FM, right?
have announced
This is 102 FM, yeah.
opposition leader who has declared himself president. CARICOM leaders
How do you pronounce his name? Guido or Guaido?
Guaido.
Guaido.
escalation.
You saw his response?
Guaido, huh?
You saw his response to the mediation?
Yeah. Well, I won't start with that.
He said he will not give credibility to any organization given oxygen.
Yeah.
That's a serious statement to me.
Yes. Embarrassing.
But when you know you have the United States military might back in you could talk that way. Why you do it?
Who am I speaking to?
Rodney Charles?
Mark Edo.
Huh?
Who? Mark Bedo.
No. There's just somebody calling and want to call in.
There you go.
Mark, slow your roll. We're not starting yet. They're anxious to call in and be part of the conversation.
Yeah, we go in the
Right beyond her
Rodney
page.
Charles.
Good.
Facebook page
Right?
as well.
Then I'm going to give you the. Yeah. Alright, let me start.
You have a guest outside the window?
Yeah, that's the battle.
Nice.
You ran the promo?
Yeah.
Okay. Alright.
Well, you know what? Let me sit on
No.
this.
Stay right there.
I want to do it too.
How are you, Steve?
Hi, how are you? That's right.
And I forgot with this interview was tonight, so I was in the gym. Janice called me out of the gym. This is the most undressed I've done a live video in a long time.
Really?
Good evening and welcome to the program.
Well,
I'm
the
Andy
members
Johnson. Hope to
support
stay with
us.
us for the next hour. This is an hour we're going to be looking at the situation in Venezuela, 7 miles away from us. In studio with us, Mr. Philip Edward Alexander, political leader of the Progressive Empowerment Party. Steve Alvarez, political leader of the Democratic Party of Trinidad and Tobago. We should be hooking up with Mr. Rodney Charles, a former permanent representative for this country at the United Nations in New York and now the Member of Parliament for Naparima on the opposition bench. We hope to be hooking up as well with Dr. Paul Nehru Tennessee, who is a lecturer at the University of the District of Columbia in Washington, D.C. He's a writer on Venezuelan issues. He has a master's in Venezuelan contemporary history, and he's observed elections there, the last one in 2013. Gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. And with us in studio as well, she's not necessarily going to be joining the discussion, but I imagine she'll be doing her stuff for social media purposes, and we appreciate that. Ms. Janice Lemon-Criqui, the Public Relations Officer of the PEP. Good evening to all three of you.
Good evening. Good evening.
Let's start with the issue of the moment. The latest in this issue is that Mr. Juan Guaido, the putative, if you could call him that, or the disputed interim president in Venezuela, he's declared himself president by virtue of him being the head of the National Assembly in Venezuela and the effective leader of the opposition in this crisis. He's declared himself president. He has poured cold water on the efforts by the CARICOM leaders who met yesterday in New York with the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Guterres, who has offered himself and his office to provide good offices towards the ambition of brokering a peace arrangement between these leaders, have dialogue aimed at forestalling what seems to be military intervention or other kinds of intervention from countries outside, led by the United States in this. But Mr. Guaido says that he will not be sitting down with any such talks with Mr. Maduro. His supporters call him the interim president, and they refer to Mr. Maduro as a usurper. Well, let's start with that. Both of you, gentlemen, good evening. Both of you have written positions on this issue. You are suggesting, Mr. Edward Alexander, what you think, how you think the situation should be played out. You've done the same thing, Mr. Alvarez. Let's start with you, Mr. Alexander.
Okay, well, good evening to your listeners and to those following us on social media. Thanks a lot for having us here, Andy. If I could ask you just step back one step before that position that you took, because that's the issue of the day.
Yeah.
But understanding, giving attention to what's going on in Venezuela, if we're going to weigh in on the issue, we have to understand more of what's going on if we're going to have an informed opinion. The Progressive Empowerment Party said when the issue started heating up that this thing about supporting Maduro or Guaido did not make as much sense if you did not know what was going on, and that the better position to take would have been to support the people of Venezuela and what they want for themselves.
Let me ask you then, who constitutes the people? Because it appears in a situation in which there are as many people supporting Maduro as those supporting Guaido.
Well, if you again, I want to say that there are three sides to every issue: your side, my side, the truth. We have to get to the truth at some point. But there's been a lot of conflict and drama in Venezuela since the Chavez days. And the supporters of Guaido are saying that the last election was not the free and fair election that they're pretending it to be.
Yeah.
That opposition forces, opposition members, opposition politicians were run out of Venezuela or jailed, that the opposition could not actively mount a campaign against Maduro.
Not everybody buys that. Those on the other side say that the opposition boycotted the election
and
refused to participate,
exactly.
and so on.
So, but the position of, if you have so much division in the country, so much violence, so much suffering, and now Russia, China, America have arrived at the table, the call for an interim government to oversee free and fair democratic elections seems to be the best way forward out of this morass. So I just wanted to say that again, at some point, some organization has to be able to offer itself. Why not the United Nations?
Yeah.
Why isn't the United Nations? Because CARICOM lost credibility. CARICOM lost credibility when we had government spokespeople. We have a Minister of Communication saying, Trinidad and Tobago will not interfere, but they recognize Maduro. That is interference.
We'll get to that
Yeah.
because there's an interpretation of what he means by that, and I'll put it on the table shortly.
Sure.
But the fact is that the United Nations Secretary General has said that he is willing to take up the appeal from the CARICOM leaders to offer his office for what they call good offices to try and broker some kind.
I think he should go straight to the two of them in Venezuela, deal with them, and don't go through CARICOM. I don't think CARICOM...
No, but you're not going through them again. They have appealed to him because I take your point that, and I think the point is taken, that because of the fractures in CARICOM about it...
We've lost credibility.
Sides
Yeah, we've lost
in that.
credibility.
There's some who have taken Maduro's side, some who have opposed and we're talking about a resolution here at the OAS, and countries which have abstained, such as Trinidad and Tobago, even if you say that, and we come to that point about recognizing the leader in office. We'll get to that in a moment, but Steve Alvarez, what's your point?
Well, good night Trinidad and Tobago, good night everyone here.
Good night.
Let me first of all say that I don't think that it is Trinidad and Tobago's position. We should not have taken or to take a position on this Venezuela issue at all. I tell you why. Because it's similar to what you would have in unions, in a negotiation with union, that you have laws and rules in a negotiation that says that you have your side and the employer have his side, and then you can go on a strike and you can have lockout action, and in the end of that whole battle, the one with the moral high ground, the one with the support of the majority and so on, usually wins, whether the employer or the employee. That's what employee relations is all about. Now, and what I'm seeing here, and if you look at social media and international news, you will recognize that there are both sides, and both sides have very strong cases. There's a fantastic one that came up recently that says, just like that, you have someone declaring himself president. And then there was another one today. I said, no, that's not what happened. This guy, the Constitution allows that. I am saying, let it all play out. Let it all play out, because at the end of this whole thing, the Venezuelan people, the people are the ones that are going to benefit from it one way or the other. Trinidad and Tobago, and I look at all of our commentaries from all over the place, and I'm saying, why are we commenting about this thing? We are in such a vulnerable position.
What is it we say nothing?
Our position, the government's position, is the correct position initially, which is to say that Trinidad and Tobago will not interfere in the internal affairs of other countries. Now, you have to understand that even in the politics of Trinidad and Tobago, you have different political parties. You have the PNM and the UNC, two major parties having opposite views.
Yeah.
And if you listen to radio and television, you have people calling them with different views. So there's no Trinidad position per se. And because there's not a Trinidad position that we can all say this is where the red, white, and black stands on, we are in the position where we should be looking and saying, let it play out. I tell you why, Jack.
Should we not think that the Trinidad position is a position being advanced by the government of Trinidad and Tobago, whatever we make of it?
Well, it ought to be that, and the government position initially is the right position, in that we do not get involved in the internal affairs. And I tell you why. Because we are vulnerable in two cases. On one side, we're hoping for the energy deals with Venezuela, which is critical to our energy sector going down the road. So we're hoping that somewhere along the line we can get gas and perhaps some oil from Venezuela. But on the other hand, most of our international trade is dependent on the United States of America. So if you have United States on one hand and Venezuela on one hand, and you as a country, and this is something the Democratic Party have been saying from day one, that Trinidad and Tobago we have not over the years done anything to put Trinidad on strong economic footing. We can't feed ourselves. We do not have the investment to make international impact.
Yeah, but
so as a country, we are vulnerable.
Yeah, but you're advancing some positions.
Clyde Weatherhead, in a piece in the Express today, there were 3 or 4 articles in the Express, on 2 pages in the Express today, dealing with this issue. I want to touch on each of them, one by Rafiq Shah, one by the international journalist Gwyn Dyer, and Clyde Weatherhead. And he's saying, among the things he's saying here, is that we should not be so so hobbled by our need to strike a deal with Venezuela on gas that we don't take
Exactly,
some of the issues
and
into
Mr. Alvarez, you advance some contradictory positions because, and with all due respect, our position cannot be how we benefit from Venezuela. Venezuela's on fire. We're supposed to be a good neighbor, and Trinidad and Colombia and all of the other countries that border Venezuela should be willing to get Venezuela back on its feet. We are suffering the consequences of the fallout in Venezuela, Trinidad and Tobago. Wanting to do business with Venezuela in the future, that's normal, and we should aspire to that. But our country leans on the United States of America. We cannot pretend to disassociate ourselves with our largest and the overwhelming majority of our trade, the overwhelming majority of our food
But
comes
you're
from the
saying
United
that we should
States.
take dictation from the United States on this issue.
I'm not saying dictation, but I'm saying where they lean, we lean.
What does that mean? So that they are calling for intervention, we should support that.
I don't think they're calling for intervention yet. I don't think that is where it's
But
at. I
if-
think a lot of this talk
If
about
the President of the
intervention
United States says all options are on the table,
and
if they're imposing sanctions
And
right
the-
now on Venezuela, we'll
if
support
the
that.
United States of America decides to go to war in Venezuela, our opinion will mean nothing.
Right, they just won't do it with our support.
And how does
probably
that?
Without
How does that
their-
benefit? If this thing gets protracted, if economic sanctions are expanded, and that net includes Trinidad and Tobago, we could end up a casualty of this. We're not thinking this through.
What? Okay.
So I'm saying,
I'm at a loss here. How do you see
economically,
Trinidad and Tobago-
economically, we are dependent on the United States of America, and to
So
say
what do you
and to
think-
say and to say because there are people who say that Venezuela could be as dependent on Russia and China. Nobody in Trinidad and Tobago, with all that talk, nobody in Trinidad and Tobago wants to live in Russia or China.
Yeah, but then you agreed with me. You were saying to me, like, I think because you said recently that there was a contradiction there. What I'm saying is that Trinidad and Tobago does not have the economic position
Clout.
When Andy,
or clout
when
to
Andy,
take
when,
a position
when Andy asked you,
one way or the other.
when Andy asked you and said that our national position should be reflective of the government's position,
And the
and
government
you said the
position
government's
is that-
position was the
is
correct
that-
position.
Yes, which
what
is
I'm
that
saying
we
to
are
you,
not getting involved in the internal affairs.
that's not what we were trying to do, because we were trying to drive the getaway car. Maduro was trying to loot Venezuela. That Dragon Field gas deal was a mad idea. And for us to go and get into such secret negotiations for something that was not allowed by the articles of the first sanction, we put ourselves in this. To pretend that we're not in it now by virtue of attempting that deal is, I think...
I'm not,
But that
I
is,
don't
that
think-
is
I don't
something
think-
totally
yeah,
unrelated
yeah, but I- yeah,
to
and I
this
don't think
issue
that-
because
that-
the
to say
Trinidad
that
and
we're not
Tobago
in it.
gas deal was not done with the government of Trinidad and Tobago alone. It was done with the energy sector of Trinidad and Tobago. But that's irrelevant to this at the
and
moment.
with international companies such as Shell. But what I'm saying is that there are people who are saying that we should not be, let me just read this statement from Clyde Weatherhead in today's Express. We must never allow desperation to let the Dragon Field deal or any pressure from big powers determine what we do in this
Absolutely
situation.
agree. Absolutely agree.
Yeah. So, okay, let me put this on the table now. You say that you accuse the government of tacitly endorsing Maduro, right? And you're saying that we can't.
But
do
they've
that.
done that. Stuart Young
on the-
contradicts
yes.
himself publicly.
Yeah, on the question of saying that he is in charge and therefore we have to deal with who is in charge. Well, I'm saying that
This quote that who answers the
Yeah,
phone.
yeah, yeah.
So if somebody seizes power, we're dealing with that person.
Yes, we dealt with it twice in recent history.
But it
in the
shouldn't-
Caribbean,
but
in
it-
Grenada on 2 occasions.
But-
One, the whole CARICOM accepted Maurice Bishop as the Prime Minister of Grenada after he staged a coup on Eric Garrick.
So- so,
and then when he was ousted in that bloody coup in October 1983, and those people,
and
the
hold on.
let me say, the Revolutionary Military Council that took over, right? That was the question at that point, right? And I'm a piece in tomorrow's Express reminding people about that. When I asked at the CARICOM conference, do we now recognize those people who took power from the man who took power? Forbes Burnham, to nobody's objection, said, yes, the question is not how you come to power, is that you can demonstrate that you are effectively in charge. And that's the issue.
No,
he went back in history to William of Orange to prove that. To
yes,
back up
but
his point, and he was not contradicted on it.
But the past does not equate the future. Yeah. How long are we going to allow ourselves to be victims of our own past? And I agree with him when he was going along the point of
precedent for it in CARICOM on both occasions. Yeah, although Bishop
but we're living in a post-Arab Spring world. We're living in a world now where people power, the power of social media, people power has changed the game.
Yeah, but that it doesn't change the game in politics and governance and effective leadership. That remains. That's the point. Once you establish.
Well, I guess we have to look at it from the point of view of what are you aspiring to be? A trading partner or a good neighbor? And sometimes those might be mutually exclusive.
What you have to do as a nation, you have to recognize, deal realistically with who you are and where you are. And because of the fact that over the years we have not done much to position ourselves to have any clout politically or economically, we have to know that's where we are. So when we start up now, we don't have that ability to stand up and puff your chest and say, I think you should go there, or I think you should go there.
See, my question is, so we take the position that we're not intervening because we did not want to take a side in that resolution at the OAS. Right. So that means that because we say that we're not condemning the presidency of Maduro. That means that if we did that, we would be interfering. My question is to proffer an opinion on what we think is the situation in Venezuela. That is how it is coming across. If we did that, then we would be seen to be interfering.
But using your same yardstick, would you say millions of people marching in Venezuela, an economy collapsing, 1,000,000% inflation, the IMF predicts 10 million% inflation, would you say, using your yardstick, that Maduro is in control of Venezuela? He may be in power.
Yeah.
And he may have the army support, and that is the issue with Venezuela, because Venezuela has democracy, but it has army control as well, and who has the army backing it generally gets power.
Right, but and it's an interesting thing that last week, for the second time in a year, elements in the military have tried to
distance themselves from the Maduro government.
And the highest ranking military official from Venezuela in the United States yesterday defected.
Well, those are players. All of those are players on the board.
Right.
So the Unite, but
he remains tacitly in
the 800-pound gorilla has arrived in the game. The United States is here, and now it's different because those who are on the side of the same side, or who want the same things that America want, maybe we should phrase it that way. Who want the same things, friend of my friend or enemy of my enemy? Maybe we phrase it that way, that what we want is a better Venezuela for Venezuelans.
I think everybody is saying that they want that, but the question is as to how. I mean, let me
bring and then, because we want that, because we want what's best for Venezuela, we ought to recognize that the Venezuelan people, when this whole thing is over, that we are hoping that the Venezuelan people would emerge victorious,
absolutely,
one way or the other.
Absolutely.
And that way you come
absolutely.
But I think, if I were the Prime Minister tomorrow, I'd be saying, listen, we are observing there, we are concerned with our heart, our government is with the people of Venezuela, but you are dealing with your crisis. And
we can't even deal with a wave of refugees. 5 million people have left Venezuela.
Put something else into the pot. Let me bring in Rodney Charles. On the question of how we responded, or how the Prime Minister responded to the statement by the U.S. Ambassador, he said he took umbrage to the fact that the U.S. Ambassador in this country could say that he was concerned about the position that we are taking. And the Prime Minister...
Are you asking that question now? Because the United States Ambassador represents the United States interests in Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, yes.
So what he was saying is, you cannot publicly disrespect me, the United States of America. You cannot publicly disrespect me and still continue to benefit from all of the benefits.
So you're saying that the position that the government of Trinidad and Tobago took is a disrespect to the United States?
I think Keith Rowley is a victim of overspeak. I think he overspoke on the entirety of the issue. What Steve is saying, and what a lot
of... What do you mean by that? The government of Trinidad and Tobago says, for whatever reason, right or wrong, This is our position.
But he is digging in, and he's not giving.
So you think the United States ambassador has a right to make a public statement in Trinidad and Tobago criticizing the government of Trinidad
and it's not the first time. It's not the first time that's been done.
And every time it has been done, there are people who
okay, but you'll be pushed back. But this is a different thing. Right. This I just want to say this to you. Okay. When the United States of America got into this conversation, the way it did, it recognized another president.
Yes.
That is unheralded almost. Yeah. So when they did that,
and we should go along with that, because
I am not saying saying that at all. Yeah. I'm just saying, what's he saying about when elephants fight, the grass get trampled? Where the grass here? Trinidad and Tobago is a couple miles away from Venezuela. Right now we stand to lose more than we stand to gain, and I think neutrality should have been our place.
Well, isn't it?
They say that you cannot be neutral. Silent. You cannot be neutral and recognize Maduro.
I just pointed out to you.
There's a way in which the Prime Minister could have responded to that.
Differently from how he did?
Differently from how he did.
Well, why? Well, let me just bring Rodney in here. Let me just bring Rodney. Rodney, you there? Yes, go ahead. Let's hear from you.
Yeah.
This on?
You see, in our entire history, Williams had challenges with the U.S. government on Chaguaramas on a number of issues. But this is the first time that we have had a public spat between the U.S. representative of the U.S. government and the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. When you take umbrage to a statement made by a foreign diplomat, you are taking umbrage against the government of that country. And in diplomatic language, that is a public rebuke.
Yes.
Sorry, there's no fallback position. Our view
there should be none.
Is that he should have been more diplomatic in his language in confronting the ambassador of the United States. But you see, it speaks to challenges because there's no consistency. When the previous U.S. ambassador made comments about MPs in Trinidad not supporting FATCA, because he said some of them had cocoa in the sun. That was interference in the domestic political affairs of a country in which he was a resident ambassador. And our government should have spoken out forthrightly against those comments. Had they done that, then the United States might have been a little more reticent in the language that they used. But in our view, the language used was measured.
But you're saying that should have happened then, and there was a problem, it didn't happen then, but so it shouldn't happen now because it didn't happen then?
Actually, the language of the diplomat, the U.S. ambassador, was measured in the sense that he stated his country's position, and he indicated that he was disappointed in the position taken by our government.
That was John Estrada.
Yeah, that is not a rebuke. That is a statement of fact. He is here to represent his country, not Trinidad and Tobago, not France, not England, the United States.
Yes.
He did represent his country's position. And he did say he was disappointed in the position taken by us. Now, to respond to that with a full-blown, rebuke, I think does not augur well for our future relations.
But there are those people who are saying that the Prime Minister now should go even further and put his feelings in writing, right to the ambassador and right to the State Department or the U.S. President directly.
And there is nothing to be gained by an escalation of the situation between
how does that benefit Trinidad?
Agree, how does that benefit us?
How does that benefit us? I have to agree with what Rodney said.
We are not in normal territory again with diplomatic finesse and whatnot. They are brutal and blunt. And Trinidad and Tobago, the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, his job is to represent our national interest.
Yes.
Gloves came off too soon. Gloves came off too soon. So we have no position to step back to.
And consistently. Let's take the energy relations.
Yeah.
The energy relations. We have put too much of our future on the Dragon field. Long ago, we should have learned that had we done that, we had to nuance our relations with the opposition forces. It's a needling of the thread. That is what diplomacy is about. Opposition forces have said that if they return to power, if they ever get into power, they are not going to honor the contract between Maduro and Dr. Rowley. He said so.
Is
So
that
we're
a
talking
fact?
about a
So
major investment,
all right.
$1 billion
No, but you don't
investment
accept Mr. Young's.
Sure about the long-term viability of the
Ro-
investment.
Rodney's lecturing,
Today,
you know. Rodney's lecturing, you know.
Rodney, you don't accept the statement made by the Minister of Communications as the next chief negotiator on this after the Prime Minister, saying last week that we would have been foolish if we didn't seek to protect ourselves in this arrangement such that whoever becomes the government can decide to walk away from it.
We did not do that. We did not do that.
He said yes.
But where publicly was that done?
He said
Where was that publicly done?
They sought advice on that, and that it is in the agreement.
Liquids, thing with Malcolm.
It is in the agreement.
And we were told that World Gas to Liquids was going to bear the cost in joint partnership with us. We found out subsequently that we were bearing the cost. And today, this year, we are stuck with an $870 million payment because
you
we
don't believe
negotiated
them.
terribly.
You don't believe them. You don't believe the minister.
I don't believe Sandals. We were told that it is a Sandals investment. That was the first announcement we were told. Then we heard that it is a joint venture between Sandals and the government and the private sector, a partnership arrangement. And then we are told that we are bearing the full cost of the investment. And then we are told that Sandals has reneged on whatever.
That is why we agreed early. This government has lost credibility because they've not been forthcoming with Trinidad and Tobago, and they've not been honest.
The Prime Minister has said that at every stage.
All right, Rodney, hold it a second. Hold it a second, Rodney.
Neither you, nor I, nor Mr. Alexander, nor Mr. Alvarez know the return on investment on $1 billion investment in Sandals. None of us know.
We've had more news. We've had more clear news on the disappearance of the Prime Minister's sheep. The truth of the matter is, and what he said earlier, and I agree, you cannot escalate so quickly. We don't even have boots on the ground. Gloves came off, and we are at the point now where the spokesperson for the President of the United States, who is on record that he is willing, you to use your words, everything is on the table.
Yes, that's what they said. All
Options open, and we're standing against that. We're saying,
but I don't think that's the position. You see, I think we're deviating from what the reality is. Let's go. We're deviating from the reality. Let's deal with the facts now.
Arrangements are going to.
Hold a second, Rodney. Hold a second.
Let's deal with the facts. The Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago is not standing unilaterally and saying I'm against what is happening with America. He said, listen, I am going to the United Nations together with my CARICOM partners so that we can see if we can come at a peaceful and
that was a backpedal. That was a backpedal. That was supposed to be. Wait, Janice, you should get into that because that should have been his first position, and that's what we agreed. Regardless, this is post ipso facto. This is post the ambassador of the United States publicly slapping him down. That's what happened.
And he should just shut up and take that.
No, I am not saying shut up and take it, but right now, diplomacy should be the order of the day. Diplomacy. So now you recognize CARICOM. Now you recognize United Nations. Before you were speaking unilaterally.
I think what the Prime Minister, by standing up in Parliament and say I take umbrage in the way he did, he could have. If it were me again, I would have been a little more diplomatic in my language. But I would say, listen, I note your concern, I understand your concern, but Trinidad and Tobago's position has been consistent over the years.
It's a sovereign position.
Yes,
So we are a sovereign nation, but we are a sovereign nation.
Let me just ask.
But if we have a protracted squabble with the United States, who loses?
But there's no
squabble. Who knows who loses? Who knows who loses? All right, let me just ask all of you to just hold a minute. We have on the line with us. We have on the line with us. Rodney, let me just ask you to hold your point a little bit, Rodney, because we have on the line with us from Washington D.C. Dr. Paul Nehru, Tennessee, a Guyanese-born political scientist teaching at the University of the District of Columbia. He's an old Venezuelan hand. He's written a book on it. And that is his master's, Venezuelan current Venezuelan politics and history. Good evening, sir. Thanks for joining us. Finally got you. You there?
I'm not hearing you clearly, Andy.
Yes. I'm asking you to. Yes. You
have to speak.
Well,
you have to have more volume in the ear.
Well, I'm not sure how high I could go if you're hearing the heat. But go ahead. Give us just a little synopsis of where you stand on this issue.
On Venezuela?
Yes.
Well, first of all, you know, I teach at the University of District of Columbia. I teach global politics, and I follow very closely what's happening in Venezuela because I wrote a book on Venezuela. I have a master's on Venezuelan contemporary history, and I taught at the university there, and I observed the elections in 2013 when Maduro was elected. Now, I'm very concerned on a number of levels about the recent developments on Venezuela. Today, I was at an event at the CSIS, the Center for International Strategic Studies, here in Washington, where the newly appointed ambassador to the OAS by Guaido, the other president of Venezuela. As you are aware, we have the phenomenon of two presidents in one country, and he has just appointed several ambassadors, including the charge d'affaires.
And they have taken their seats? So they have taken their seats? In the OAS, for instance, his appointed.
In the OAS, yes. He would be.
That's incredible.
Those countries recognize him.
To substitute the representative of the Maduro government. And also the charge d'affaires. I don't know, the Venezuelans under Maduro have left United States, and they have been recalled to Venezuela. So I do not know whether the charge d'affaires will take possession of the embassy and the consulate here in Georgetown, Washington, D.C., tomorrow or today. So he made a presentation on behalf of President Guaido, interim President Guaido, as we refer to him, and speak about him as a representative. But my concerns are numerous. Number one is the Caribbean itself. You are aware that Trinidad and Tobago Prime Minister and also the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Barbados went to meet the Secretary General of the UN. I think it was a bit ironic that they do not represent CARICOM countries, because CARICOM have three positions. There are countries like the two...
Well, they had three positions, but they came together in calling for mediation and in setting CARICOM up as the agencies through which that mediation could have taken place. And that is the basis on which they went to Washington yesterday to say that this is CARICOM's request.
But I don't understand Caribbean diplomacy. First of all, CARICOM was supposed to have one voice. We were supposed to have one foreign policy. Okay, so you have three positions. You have a position where a group of countries do not recognize Maduro and his election. Number one. Implicitly, what does it mean? Do they recognize Guaido? Secondly, you have another group that abstained, and the ones that went to meet the Secretary General are those who abstained. And then you have another group that recognizes Maduro. So, you know, the Secretary General is not a fool. He must have people, intelligent people there who brief him on what's happening in the Caribbean. I mean, under no circumstances could the three of them be speaking on behalf of the Caribbean. Now, they were not speaking of Caribbean mediation.
But they went,
which I think is a good
they went as a CARICOM delegation, not so? And the CARICOM secretariat approved their going to speak for CARICOM. And so you're saying that the UN Secretary General just met them?
There's a difference between political leadership and secretariat. Secretariat has to speak on behalf of the political leadership.
Yes.
So who is the secretariat speaking for? The three positions?
No, the position was singularized when they had that meeting last week, and that is how they came up with this idea that they will all come together
to cook it. Well, it's contradictory, my friend.
All right.
It's contradictory.
Okay,
it
may well be.
What they should have done what they should have done was step by step. They should have coordinated their position in the Caribbean with either the heads of state in an emergency meeting.
Well, this is what it did. That's what happened.
And then that should have been coordinated at the OAS. And what they did not, they are in a state of disarray. At the OAS, they have been in a state of disarray. How they are going to go to the UN now to present one position?
Because they have decided, they have concluded that the OAS, through the Secretary General, has delegitimized that as a body to solve this issue, and the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago has said that. But let's talk about so the UN Secretary General met them and said that based on what they said to him, what they appealed to him, he is going to move forward now to put himself, his office, at the disposal of the two leaders in Venezuela. But we know today that Mr. Guaido has said that he is not going to sit down with a man who tortures people and kills opponents. So that puts spade to that.
Okay, that's one point. But the other aspect to it is that look, in the OAS, the Caribbean has more relevance than the UN.
They're more numerous.
In the Caribbean, we have about
14.
a whole heap of votes. 14. And if we couldn't have coherence there, what are we going down to the UN to do? Now, the Secretary General of the UN is not going to take orders from these three countries that went there and a divided Caribbean.
So you don't think that he will? You don't think that he will be conscientious in moving forward with this appeal for mediation?
Well, he has not been successful between Venezuela and Guyana with the border issue. It eventually has gone to the court. The Venezuelan.
Well, that predates him by decades. You'd accept that.
So you guys have a good track record. But beyond that, let's look at what's happening there in that country right now. That country is facing either a civil war or it's facing a situation where a Central American situation of the 80s might develop. There are 3 million or more Venezuelans outside.
So what's your idea?
They might be armed. The forces outside that are supporting Guaido might support them to be armed. Because how will the problem be resolved if the military continues to control the situation there? The Venezuelans in the civil society does not seem to have the arms and the capacity to fight a civil war militarily inside
because one of the parts of that narrative is that Maduro has so effectively stripped civil society and any area, any forum from which he felt opposition, such that the country is in the state that it is. You accept that or not?
Well, yes. What has happened definitely in Venezuela, until very recently, there has been a deterioration of the capacity of civil society, but also the division among the opposition was a problem. And then Maduro also have made some grave mistakes. And the mistakes he made was the manner in which he treated elections of the assembly when the opposition won the assembly, the manner in which one of the major candidates, who was not an extremist, was proscribed from participating in elections.
All right, so let me ask you this.
A number of mistakes were made, but now we are at the situation where it is, where we've never seen before two presidents in one country, and the Western liberal democratic powerful countries are supporting one, and the United States and Canada, China, and Russia. Are supporting the other. The other one. And Cuba.
Right. So let me ask you because we have to cut away in order to come back here.
Another option is that there's going to be a proxy war there between Russia and the United States.
Okay, final point from you. You accept or not that Maduro has squandered his own legitimacy, and however the situation turns out, he doesn't have what it takes to carry on. He doesn't have goodwill from more countries and more people around the world than less?
Well, there's no doubt if you take a poll around the world, Maduro is at a disadvantage, except, let me point out to you, many countries in the world are very cautious about the question of sovereignty and the entrance and the interference in other countries. Now, this is an old story in international politics from 1648 at Westphalia, when after the 30 Years' War they decided they are not going to intervene in each other's country and interfere in their domestic political affairs.
Yes.
This is something going on here. It's been violated by many countries. You had the First World War, Second World War, and now when Mr. Trump has come to power, there has been questioning of a lot of traditional diplomatic treaties.
All right. On the point about the UN Secretary General has said that he was willing to go forward with the attempt at mediation.
He will do that.
But Mr. Guaido said
flew to Baghdad.
All right.
To prevent the war with Iraq.
Mr. Guaido said that he doesn't want to have anything to do with it. So that is not on.
Well.
So where does that leave us?
When people take public positions, it doesn't mean in diplomacy that is their position. Sometimes people take a position like that.
So
but Mr. Guaido has to focus because he's in a situation where he cannot dilute the support that he has been receiving by opting for another road. He has to stick with the road that has been outlined to him there by Canada, the United States, and now other adherents like France and Britain and so forth. It would be foolish of him from a strategic point of view in his war with Mr.
To sit down with Maduro?
For him to go and opt now for a United Nations when we know the UN is a toothless tiger.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much. Paul Nero, Tennessee. Yeah. A former teacher of mine at York University. Yeah? So I know him so good.
No, but Andy, and I just want to put this into the conversation because we're losing sight of it.
Let me just say, sorry about that, but let me just say that I should have said it at the top because we also invited the mayor of Port of Spain in his capacity as chair of the International Relations Committee of the PNM. But he said that his committee had not had a meeting for the year, so he didn't want to come and say anything that
speak on the behalf of people who don't have a position. But we've lost sight of something here. We have conflict taking place that has nothing to do with Venezuela playing out in Venezuela. United States of America joined Russia and China, who were already present in Venezuela. Their appearance there forced the United States of America to take a position. Venezuela is not like any other country in the Western world. That is the largest oil reserves on planet Earth. Yeah, we can't just play fast and foolish with this. And I just want to say this, that the United States, this president of the United States has taken a strong position on China. China's expansion into the Western world through what is coming across as some very dubious policies of easy money for you to get a foothold in a country. And the United States of America is
dubious, right? Because everybody's saying that warning us about
don't take Chinese money. Don't take Chinese money because the money comes easy, but there's a sting in the tail. But so the United States of America is already looking on at that playing out and looking for an opportunity to stop it. Russia's crazy move, I gotta say it's crazy, to put itself and attend to this matter that it has no business in.
Maduro, it has lots of business. But Venezuela owes Russia billions of dollars.
Venezuela only owes Russia billions of dollars because Russia put itself there. The United States, I just want to say this, the United States of America needed a way to join this conversation, so they've joined it through Guaido.
But
They've
that's not true, though.
All right, go ahead.
Because
Make
the
your point.
United
And then-
States of America...
And then we bring back in Rodney for a minute because we want to open up the line.
selling
please.
over 45% of their oil reserves to the United States through CITGO. So America has always been a player
For a long time.
That's not in dispute. But what I'm saying is,
Yeah, from
having
all
these
the
big
time.
players,
Always
having
been
these
there.
big players come to claim Venezuela now could change.
But they're not stating any claim.
Russia
They've had
and China-
America's investments in Venezuela has been there for
From time
decades.
immemorial.
It is not America's involvement in Venezuela we're disputing here. I'm talking about Russia and China's encroachment and expansion into the Western Hemisphere. That is the concern
So
to the
what
United
America
States.
is actually doing
Defending its position.
But
that's what I said.
But don't lose
In
sight.
Venezuela.
Don't lose sight of the fact, gentlemen, that we're talking here. Trinidad and Tobago is in the center of this, and we're talking about our interests.
And that's the point. That's the point. And you said earlier, Rodney said it, we allude to this all the time. Trinidad and Tobago lost sight of its importance. I think we overstated our position on this. The Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago put us in hot water. He had no right to take such a strong position when what we should have been offering ourselves from early in the game is a bridge to peace. We failed that.
My position is I don't think Trinidad and Tobago is in any position to have any position.
But we're trying now. We're trying now to offer ourselves as intermediaries after we've lost credibility.
All right, let me bring back in Rodney for a minute because we're going to have to open the lines. Rodney?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that is why our position is we have the view that Trinidad and Tobago should years ago have anticipated events in Venezuela and sought within a CARICOM framework to serve as an honest broker, bringing contending forces to the table in search of a lasting
Absolutely.
peace. It is now too late for that.
Way
And
too
when
late.
I heard
So
you
Rodney,
talk earlier
when you were there,
about
you didn't realize that either,
Secretary
right?
General and the United Nations is the diplomatic, the world's premier multilateral diplomatic organization. They will talk and nothing will happen. The Secretary General is a creature of the P5. These are the 5 permanent states on the Security Council. Each of them could veto his next, when he goes for election next time, to renew his mandate. So therefore, he has to thread a needle. And if the United States, who funds 25% of the UN's budget, is taking a strong position, he will thread the needle. Believe me, and nothing will happen. So our position, as it stands, we stand by our recognition of Juan Guaido as the interim president of Venezuela with a mandate to hold free and fair elections supervised by respected international organizations to determine the true will of the people of Venezuela.
All right.
And
all right, thank you very much, Rodney, because we have to open the lines for callers.
Reach a lasting solution.
All right, thank you very much, Rodney.
Up to that point,
let me just invite callers. On the
but up to that point, he was speaking sensibly. But when the opposition recognized Guaido, it made the matter worse. Trinidad lost all of its credibility because now we've put ourselves in a position where our government is supporting one side, our opposition is supporting another, and we have no position that we could take nationally that is of value to all the people of Venezuela.
Thank you. There's a call on the line. Good evening.
Hey, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
This is debate. Andy, let me just put a compliment for your work you're doing, and good night, everyone.
Good night.
And Rodney Charles on the phone. Now, I want to tackle this from a different perspective. Let's look at the Caribbean perspective first, gentlemen.
Let me tell you, we don't have time for a whole exposition, right?
What's happening in the Eurozone.
Plenty
where,
history. Everybody want to give their history.
all these issues with this Brexit, and the CARICOM has been non-functional for over a decade plus, right? So internationally, I don't think any serious country is looking at CARICOM. When last has CARICOM ever come together for any particular thing? I'm talking about a summit.
All right, so that's what you're saying. CARICOM has no legitimacy. I'm sorry to do this, but what you're saying is that CARICOM has no legitimacy in the matter.
Yeah,
Take another call.
Yeah, we had to take calls.
Yeah, but you were saying, Steve, while we wait for there's another call. Good evening.
Yes. Good evening. Good evening to the panel. Good evening, Andy. I speak as a Trinidad and Tobago citizen who has family in Venezuela and who has been very conversant with the situation there for the last 20 years. It is comical to hear Mr. Charles a little while ago talk about the UNC taking a principled position to recognize Guaido, because the UNC was the party that started negotiations for the gas with Maduro and brought him here twice, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
and the concern that the party now has for Venezuelans in Trinidad and Tobago and Venezuelan refugees. I also remember that our Trinidad and Tobago Police Service were being directed by the Venezuelan Secret Intelligence Service to harass Venezuelan citizens here when they were protesting against Maduro. So this about turn is wonderful.
All right.
It is really, really comical.
But that statement he just made there, that's fact.
Well, I don't know.
But he's just going to put that into the conversation and leave it here? That the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service was directed by the Venezuelan Secret Intelligence to harass Venezuela.
But whether that is so or not, I have had information from Venezuelan refugees that they had been being harassed. But I'm not saying that.
No. I'm not disputing it, you know. But you see how little credibility we have in this conversation.
Yes. Good evening.
Hi, good night.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I don't know if Rodney Charles is on the line.
No, he's not.
Oh, but I first of all, to correct the comment stated, in 2013, when President Maduro was elected democratically as the president of Venezuela, Carlos Bassan was the prime minister of Trinidad and Tobago. At that time, Mr. Maduro was elected democratically and properly.
Yes. That's not in dispute.
The UNC was in any form of support of Mr. Maduro at that time. And because Mr. Maduro was elected properly.
Yes. Yes. We're not disputing that. It is what happened after that.
But you see, you're not disputing that. But he said the word democratically in 3 different sentences, and I have a lot of people. But I have a lot of people saying that is not true. You cannot be elected democratically if there is no opposition.
In 2013,
there is a lack of legitimacy. There's a serious lack of legitimacy, and any claim to the contrary.
But the Emancipation Support Committee has a different view.
It's funny that when you look at international media, you're seeing all the people that are out there fighting against Maduro, but if you look at the alternative media, you see there's a
all right. But why is the country okay?
But let's take this call. Good evening.
Andy.
Good evening.
Andy, good evening.
Good evening.
And your esteemed panel.
Good evening.
You know, it seems to me that no one is reading the tea leaves. Andy, you were living in this country when there was the brouhaha about sending back Venezuelans. And the Prime Minister of the country said, en passant, that there are those who want us to join them in invading Venezuela, and you will have none of it.
Yes.
When Mexico said that they were not supporting the U.S. position, did the ambassador for Mexico City say to the president of Mexico that they didn't like what they said?
All right,
it is only in Trinidad it was said.
Yeah.
And the point I wish to make to you and leave with you here, if under Kamala Bassan says she's saying that she's supporting Guaido, support means you go all the way. Find out what Trinidad would be used for in relation to an invasion of Venezuela.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks for that. Andy, I just want to say, if you have a country where millions of people are marching for and millions of people are marching against, you do not have a proper run country. If your economy collapses, if you have 1,000,000% inflation, if you have people dying of starvation, there was a study that said collectively Venezuela has lost, I think, 15 pounds each per person.
Yes.
And when you have all of that going on, you cannot look to a man who is the leader of the country that sits on the world's largest oil reserves and say everything is normal.
But I don't think people are saying everything is normal.
As a caller said earlier, that Trinidad and Tobago should have always been trying to create a bridge of communication between both sides.
Okay, let's take the call. Good evening.
Who is Trinidad and Tobago?
Good evening. Hello?
Good evening.
Yes.
With regard to Guaido and Maduro,
that's what we're talking
Guaido has
about.
clearly followed the Venezuelan constitution. And if we are to understand what is happening now, we really need to pay attention to the sequence of events that took place and the argument that the Venezuelan National Assembly has put forward to say that Maduro is no longer president.
So you support that or not?
His tenure expired on the 10th of January. What the Venezuelan National Assembly is saying is that the election that he allegedly won in 2018 is not valid because...
But do you agree with it? The point is, do you agree with that?
I agree that Guaido is president.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
And I just want to say this is the last thing.
Wait,
Okay, yeah.
So you have to realize who is Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad and Tobago, this whole debate tonight is about what is Trinidad and Tobago's position. And I'm saying that this is a country where you don't feed yourself, where you are dealing with crime that's going out of your windows. You have infrastructure that's falling apart.
Yeah, but we're talking diplomacy and our political position.
A position to deal with a crisis that you have no part to play in.
And I agree with
what
your
you
point.
do is that you sit down and
I agree with
say
your
what
point.
you have always been saying and taking the CARICOM stand and say, listen, whatever is happening in Venezuela, Trinidad and Tobago is with the people of Venezuela. Well, however it turns out,
but you said it. Shouldn't we on important issues have a national posture? Shouldn't Trinidad's posture?
And the position is the national position.
Wait. So the national position is non-interference. Yes.
Yes.
How can you be saying that the government was not interfering after the United States of America recognized Guaido? Trinidad and Tobago had no position or no place recognizing Maduro. We were to step back then. We were to recognize, and this is my point, that nobody, all of the history, we could open the phone lines in the next 3 days, and all of the historians will call in. But what Andy, and I hope we should be trying to get to is, this is where we are now. How do we go forward from here?
Right. So, all right, let's take this call, and it will have to be the last call. Good evening. Hello?
Hello.
Good evening.
Good night and very good programming.
Good evening.
You know, the sad thing about politics in Trinidad and Tobago, I am sure if the opposition was in power, they would have taken the same position that Dr. Rowley is taking right now.
All right.
I am positive about that.
All right, that's fair enough. Thank you very much.
We have no way of knowing that, but thanks a lot for that contribution.
My position, I feel very strongly that, you're saying because America take a position, I say we recognize Guaido, that Trinidad's position should be we recognize Guaido as well?
That's not what I said.
What are you saying then?
I said that Trinidad and Tobago should have always built a bridge to communication between the opposing forces in Venezuela.
And the fact that we haven't done that, we've lost, we shouldn't be trying to interfere.
We did worse, and what we did is we've angered our major trading partner. So we've made the entire situation bad for ourselves.
All right, that has to be the last word. For the bell with Alexander. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot for having us, Andy.
Thank you very much. We want to thank our guests. We want to thank Dr. Paul Newell, Tennessee in Washington, D.C. And Rodney.